And welcome back to another episode of Rebuilding Bolton, the Analysis Days. And now, I promised that we would go over some of the sort of statistical changes that I found since pre and post patch, which is the main reason I wanted to try to keep things as straightforward as I could, really, just so that we had some good data to work with, because that's how we're going to sort of dig ourselves out of this hole, by looking at things that have changed and trying to work out how to change them. Now, I think over that period, I've got enough information to go on to make a decent number of changes that I think could solidify us for next season, given the things that I've noticed over this period. It's simple stuff like the fact that the Barrows don't work anymore. Like, they were starting to not work previously, but now it really doesn't work. You just get nothing out of them. So we are probably just going to move to a straight back three with a normal set of centre-backs in there, which might actually help us. But with that, I think it's going to come the need for a playmaker further up the field that's actually designated to do so, which is fine, because playmakers are very easy to come by, and it might allow us a bit more of a sort of a focal point that can spray those balls out left and right. I also think that using wide play a bit more and actually focusing that a bit more might well be the difference for us. Because one of the benefits of playing the ball through the middle in the way that we have been was that very often, firstly, we'd allow those lovely passes to Temenushkov, but he doesn't make the runs, or rather they don't find the passes anymore when that's what they should be doing. But before, we've managed to free up Sonny Low-Everton and that advanced shadow striker role quite a lot, but because of the refusal to play those passes in the correct channels anymore, he's unable to get into that position as much as he was before. So that again has caused us some problems. Now, also bearing in mind with the numbers I'm about to talk about, there's all sorts of factors that could cause these to be completely anomalous. I'm just showing you the raw data that we've gathered so far. Now, the quality of opposition is again something that would matter quite dearly, but what I would say is that even against some of the worst opposition, we still looked worse than we did before. But again, it is, so take this with a pinch of salt, but it's certainly interesting data. So you should see on your screen now the data that I have, basically. So pre-patch, post-patch, and the percentage change between them, which I think is quite an important factor. So we were conceding, as goals per game, we were scoring 1.34 roughly per game pre-patch. That was the whole first part of the season. Now, obviously, that includes the first part where we were doing okay, then the struggles, then the sort of rejuvenation. So make of that what you will. Since then, we have dropped by around about 16% in terms of the amount of goals we're scoring per game. So it's a small drop, but, you know, it does matter at the end of the day. Over the course of a season, that would be responsible for a few goals that you would like to be conceding. I think the real issue for me is the big drop in our actual creativity per game. And I think, once again, the Sheffield United, us scoring 3 goals against Sheffield United has possibly skewed that stat somewhat. And this is why I think XG is actually quite a useful stat when you're measuring things long-term with FM. Although this, again, is a shorter period of time, but it's still interesting. Because our XG per game is down 36% over that same period of matches. We've gone from an average of 1.35, which is basically dead on the number of goals we were scoring in that period, to now way, way less, 0.86 or 868 in this particular scenario. So that's a huge drop in the amount of creativity that we're getting. We're just not creating high-quality chances anymore. And I think were it not for the fact that we scored those 3 goals out of basically nothing against Sheffield United, and perhaps even the ones against Huddersfield, then, yeah, we're just not getting those high-quality opportunities like we were before. Temenushkov's in behind, those sort of chances, the nice little working the ball in the edge of the box for a nice cutback, they just don't exist anymore with the way that we're playing currently, and I think that's what we need to try to get back to. So that's a big drop that I've noticed. Our creativity has been completely decimated over this period, but it's also seemed to have had a negative effect on us as far as our defensive capabilities, despite the fact that, I mean, for example, as you can see here, goals against per game, 1.34. That was about, we basically were almost identical. In fact, we were identical as far as goals scored per game and against, because we conceded 51 and 38 and scored 51 and 38. But since then, the number of goals we're conceding per game has gone up quite dramatically by 21%. It's still quite a large rise, but it could be worse. The main issue here is the fact that we're conceding way more chances per game. Again, what's essentially happened is that we're no longer creating high-quality chances, and we're now giving up too many high-quality chances. The amount of chances created per game against us seems to have risen by nearly 41% in that same period. And again, bigger squads, better teams against us, that could definitely be a factor in that. And it'd be nice if we had half and half for the full season, but we just don't. So again, it's probably not as drastic as it would appear there, but that definitely shows that we need to make some changes in order to better ourselves for next season. So I've definitely got some plans in mind. Hopefully it works. I just really don't want to have to change too much of our batshitness, because it is fun to do this, but what wouldn't be fun is us just sort of grinding out season after season in the Championship and not actually going anywhere. So we do need to make some changes, I feel like, and we can make some transfers around that too. We don't know how much we're going to get from the board, but we'll find out soon. So Akinfenmewo, like, one thing I've really noticed as well is the sheer lack of goals from set pieces from us this season. It's just been non-existent virtually. Firmino has got one off of next year too. He's got a couple of assists though, which I assume were balls over the top. I still like him. I think he's a really solid defender, and maybe with the right defensive setup, he could definitely do. I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest, but we'll go with it so far. Alex Finn is obviously a youth player who's just been moved up into the first team squad, so less said about him the better. We'll just go through some of these. Goldston this year, he's got 6 goals. He's only started 5 games for us in the league, so I can't really be too mad at him for his performances so far. I think with the right track, and he is slowly but surely improving, and that's all you can really ask for from the youngster. I think there's a long way to go for him, and I'm hoping he can do that. So we'll have to see. He wants more quickness training. Sure, why not, I guess. Charlie Good, I think, has probably been one of our better performers in this second half of the season. He has stood out to me in many ways. He's basically nailed on a lot of things there. Has been one of the better defenders for us and has regularly been putting in good ratings lately, which has been nice to see from a centre-back, to be fair. Even in games we've been playing poorly, I've been quite a fan of the way that Charlie Good has performed. And you can sort of see, I mean, those long throws, we haven't really utilised those, but I like him a lot, and I think he's been a solid addition to the squad since he's joined us. I like Charlie. Paul Innes, haven't seen a lot out of him this year, really. Like, he's made 12 starts in the Championship, though, and has underperformed excruciatingly, if I'm honest. So I'd like to see more out of him, but we've got a lot of options on that right-hand side with Porteous and Lostak, and he is still very young. I still think there's something to be gained from this guy, and he is still pretty good on paper. Just needs to work on a few things, perhaps. I don't know. We'll see. Concentration's quite poor. Niall John. I've been a big fan of Niall John this year, and I think he's the sort of player that I wouldn't mind bringing back on loan again for next season, because he just seems to make stuff happen in that midfield. And he's one of the players that does seem to have performed quite nicely in that same period of matches. However, I feel like if he was to be in our midfield, he'd have to be the box-to-box option. There's no use in playing him as a playmaker if we were to switch to that, because he has just not got that quality. Daniel Kemp hasn't made enough appearances this year to really have much of an impact on the team. Just been poor when he has played. It's been mostly off the bench. Henry Lawrence. Again, I feel like he's a good player and he can definitely cover a lot of positions, but we really do need to, if we were to switch to things like having a playmaker, we need someone who's got that passing and vision, and that's something we just lack at the moment. I do wonder, though, Lawrence is great because he can cover all sorts of positions for us, and it's very useful. Low Everton, obviously, he's been out on loan from Watford this year. He's actually still underperformed his XG, but he definitely improved towards that period of matches where we switched things up a little bit. Just before the patch, we found a way to make things work, and he was definitely getting involved in things. But since then, he just isn't getting in those positions anymore, and it's been a real problem for us. Petr Lostak has only got 3 goals in total in the league so far this season, but he's actually still outperformed his XG, which is fine. I think he's been okay. I think there's still a lot more to come from him, but again, he's still young, still got time. I do wish we could get rid of this, to be honest. Barley Mumba, I think it's fair to say this has been a massive waste of a signing. He has performed poorly in every single position he's played in, and that's partly my fault, really, because at the end of the day, we played him here a lot of the time, and then when we did play him in the middle, he just couldn't cut it, despite that being perhaps one of his better positions. So it just couldn't do anything for us. Happy to see the club performing well in the league. I disagree, Barley. Guy Porteous, he has done, I actually think he's probably been one of the players that's done quite well this year. 9 goals and 5 assists. It's probably not his best season for us, but it's not far off, actually. He's certainly done a decent job of contributing on both ends of the spectrum here. And in a season we've played as badly as we have, he's been one of the players that has continued to improve. And hopefully he can continue to do that. His technique is superb. I think just getting more of him going is probably going to help us quite a lot. And I do really like Guy Porteous. So I think he's one of the players that is definitely got something to offer for us in future seasons. Jaden Richardson, obviously haven't seen much out of him so far. Came in at a weird time. We had to find a player. He's done fine, I guess. Anthony Sasebovich, not seen enough out of him. His contract expires this summer. Yes, it does. And unfortunately, I think he will leave, sadly. Matthew Smith, he's still got another year left on his deal. He's still unhappy about usual stuff. He wants another contract, but he wanted absurd money. The only thing about Smith that could definitely be useful for us is perhaps if we were to move to a more playmakery style, he could be that man. And that might be something that we may have to look into. Maybe he'll change his mind about his contract this summer. We'll have to see. Or we could sign someone better. Temenushkov, he's still netted 18 times in the league this year. It's just been a really struggly second part of the season for us, unfortunately. He's just not been able to get into positions to score, quite simply. What's his form been like as of late? I mean, he got that 1 goal against Hull City, which he did all by himself. And he's literally not scored a goal since the Sheffield... But basically no goals and just no evidence of any kind of performances out of him anymore. because we're just not providing him any chances. The sort of chances he thrives off are just simply not happening anymore. So we definitely need to find ways to get him into better positions. The fact that he's worth £10 million, though, is definitely a good sign for us, though. That's the one thing we've got in our favour, is the fact that he is an incredible asset as far as his value goes. So were there to be massive bids for him, we may have to start looking at that, but it depends on the sort of bids. And the fact is, he's not wanted by anyone anyway, so that's a good sign for us so far, but that's a huge value for a player like him. Carlo Ziga. It's hard to know what to say about Carlo, because people say you should get someone like Will Jääskeläinen. Bearing in mind, he would cost us quite a lot of money because he is at Forest. And I compared the two, and he is virtually better in every single way than Jääskeläinen. And I'm hoping that, and to be fair, since the changes, he does seem to have actually started playing better. It's one of the few things that I would say is a positive sign, is that the goalkeeper has slightly got better. And I do wonder if it's maybe not the worst. Like, it just feels like one of those situations where there's perhaps bigger issues in the squad, but we'll find out in a minute. I still think we're probably going to look for a keeper anyway, though, but I do wonder if maybe he deserves a second chance just because he has performed a lot better lately. Regan Booty has, of course, been Regan Booty, and even he this year has underperformed. Assist-wise, he's still been spectacular, but he's not taken the chances when he's got them, and yeah, I mean, what more can you say about him? At the end of the day, he's still Regan Booty, and that's all that really matters. Still worth a lot of money, though. 5.5 million is a lot for a player like Regan Booty, but he's probably nearing about the maximum of what we could get out of him at the moment, so we'll have to see about that. James Bree, he's just had an absolutely woeful season, but again, a lot of that would have been playing when fullbacks were broken, so it's hard to really judge him on his average rating per se, but he hasn't provided much going forward, less than you would expect. I don't know, we'll have to see. Josh Brooking, of course, is completely all over the place, but I am starting to wonder if he could do a job as a centre-back for us, but it's just not enough there, really, is there? He does have okay passing and vision, but he's nothing special so far. And the experiment of trying to train him further up has just not happened because, my assistant's my assistant must have taken him off of it because I didn't. Zach Clough has only made substitute appearances, but has actually contributed, in fairness, in places. But his contract's up this summer, and he's wanted by other clubs, and I just don't know if there's enough reason to keep him at this point. Matthew Craig, it's a strange one. He's been out on loan at File. I just want to quickly show you, because he's got 9 goals and 9 assists this year in the National League. I don't think he's actually good enough to start for us, but it's cool to see him do so well out on loan. So fair play, Matt Craig. And Ramodi Critchlow-Noble has had a very poor season, but I think that's less to do with him and more to do with the fact that the tactic just doesn't work with the libero. Like, he is a very good libero, but there's no such thing anymore because they just don't work functionally. Not certainly at the level we're at with the squad we've got, because, God, his passing is so good. You could retrain this guy to play as a midfielder and he'd be fine, but right now, he's fine in the role he is, and I think maybe he will get more out of him in a more traditional defensive role. Maybe as a ball-playing defender, perhaps. Maybe that's something we could try him for. Just, instead of being a libero, just make him ball play so he doesn't have the same approach at the back, but he does still get a chance to do a bit of fancy stuff with his feet because he's got such great passing and vision. Maybe that's something we could do. Callum Doyle, 8 starts this year, shown very little, but it was always going to be tough for him. Harley Ewan, again, made very few starts, but did put in a couple of strong performances towards the end of the year, so I'm still thinking there's something to this lad. And we're back to Akinfenmayo, who's also valued at quite a lot of money, but he is on quite a lot of money too. So let's check out the league stats, shall we? So average possession-wise, we're still quite up there because we do keep a decent amount of the ball. Headers won, we're always really, really poor on. Just no matter how tall our players are and how much we focus on getting teams to cross the ball in and us to head it away, we do still win very few headers, interestingly. Our headers won ratio is pretty poor too, and that does surprise me, but hey, just the way it goes. We're not great as far as yellow cards, but it could be a lot worse. Red cards, though. Oh, no, we had 2 earlier this season, didn't we? Points per game, obviously Norwich are right up there. We were very, very poor. The form is irrelevant at this point. Goals, Stoke were the highest. We were a bit struggly for goals. 14th overall in the league. Bear in mind, we finished lower than 14th, so we were certainly decent as far as, I mean, not decent, but fine going forward, I suppose. And it did sort of tail off towards the end there. Expected goals for, again, we were actually expected to be slightly higher than that. But still, we scored around about the exact same amount of goals as you would have expected us to. It's just that it seemed to leave us further down than you would have expected. Other teams overperformed more, I guess is the best way to look at that. Penalties taken, we had 7 and we scored 6. Wow, Stoke missed 5 penalties this year. That's quite bad. Cross completion suffered somewhat this season. I think we've been better on that in the past. Crosses completed as well was sort of mid-table, that's fine. Goals from corners. Like, what has happened to us? 3 goals from corners this season. This is where we've really suffered, I feel like. Direct free kicks, 1, so that's 4. Indirect free kicks, 3. Like, that's 7 goals from those, whereas in previous seasons we've really been better from set pieces. The corner one is the most surprising for me. We've been very, very poor getting corner goals this season, and that is interesting. I guess it's just better defences as part of the issue here. Our pass completion is actually quite poor, considering that we rely on a lot of that as well, so that's kind of interesting. And once again, creating less and less of that. Clear-cut chances created, around about 14th. We seem to be always averaging above where you would expect, where we're actually finishing this season, which is kind of interesting. Shots for, not taking as many shots as perhaps we did before. Shots on target, again, slightly further down there. Shots on target ratio, that's definitely suffered, I would say. Conversion rate, still not even that bad, to be fair. Shots per game, that's quite poor again. Fouls against, we do seem to win a lot of free kicks. We're just not taking advantage of them anymore. Dribbles made, obviously that would have fallen as a result of us switching stuff off. But we were still top 10 for it too. Possession lost, I bet we're massively down here. In fact, we're the worst in the entire league. That doesn't surprise me at all, because this is the biggest thing I've noticed. Our players lose the ball in stupid positions, but then fail to win those balls in the exact same positions up against our opposition sometimes. And that's a frustrating thing to watch happen. And something that is a very key factor for me in part of our problems is we're just losing possession too much. Now, what it counts as losing possession, I don't know. Whether that's a case of being tackled or that's a case of just giving the ball away, I'm not sure. But yeah, in time we will figure that one out. Defensively, 14th best. So we should have finished around about here, but we were just a little bit worse in the end. Expected goals against, I mean, this is the thing. We had the 5th best expected defence. And bearing in mind how much worse that got over that last 8 games, we could genuinely perhaps have actually been up as high as the best teams in the league in that. And when you look at the other teams up here, 6th, 4th, 1st, 2nd, and then right behind us is 3rd and 7th. We and Derby and Forest are very strangely outliers here. When you look towards the bottom of this, it's a very strange setup. It does seem that the way that we, Derby and Forest, play seems to not get us to expect many goals conceded, but we do anyway. So interesting that. Conceded from corners, 6. It could be worse, but it could be a lot better from us. Direct free kicks, none, which is good, but this is where we're going to really suffer. 5. One of the worst in the league for indirect free kicks. So we've definitely been worse from these, for sure. In fact, what was that? 5 goals conceded there, 6 there, so that's 11, but none from direct free kicks. Well, I guess that's something. Clean sheets, obviously, we're trash on that one, so make of that what you will. Fouls made, we're not really fouling a lot, but then still conceding a lot of free kicks off of that anyway. Tackles made. So we lose the ball a lot and don't make many tackles. That's been part of our problem. Our players just are not tackling. Tackles on ratio, still surprisingly high. They just refuse to tackle, which is interesting on such a high-pressing approach that we just refuse to win tackles half the time. I just accidentally hit the spacebar when I was trying to press another button, and we've just gone on and actually got our board and budgets. So a transfer budget of 1.49 million and a wage budget of not very much. So they've given us a lot less money than we had last season, which doesn't give us a lot of room. Look at this, the wage budget thing. Remember some of the money that players on this league want. They want, like, a good player at this level for the sort of signings that we can make with my negotiations probably wants about that in wages. So when you think about it, and that's with it all, oh my God, that's with it all dumped on wage budget. We are going to be able to sign basically no one this summer. There's loads of transfer budget, but we can't do anything with it. So we've got loads of money to spend on players, but no wages to give those players. So yeah, I'm not expecting much this summer with that kind of transfer budget, unfortunately. The budget's fine, the wages is not. But anyway, back to this. Clearances. Wow, not a lot of clearances, but though we do play out from the back, so that might be part of the... Maybe you could stop doing that as much. I don't know. Interceptions. We were very high on that, and I think we've fallen off quite a bit as we do seem to have made a lot less interceptions lately. Penalties conceded. We've only conceded 1 penalty this season. That is very, very good. I'm actually very surprised. So it could have been a lot worse from us. So it could have been like Cardiff. That's made a hell of a difference. Shots against. We have faced very few shots in the grand scheme of things, but we just concede off of them. So that's definitely something to look at. Shots on target against, very few. But that's just how it goes. We've got to be better than that. Average attendance nearly 20k, which is very nice. Net transfer spend, obviously ours is slightly above, but nothing major, when Sheffield United have made 63 million. And salary per annum, again, we're one of the lowest salaries in the league by a comfortable margin. And the thing is, it's only going to get worse this summer, because they've basically given me no money. If anything, it looks like they've taken money away from my wage budget. I swear we had more than that before, but hey, that's just how it goes. Let's check out the player stats. Now, obviously, some of these might be a bit bugged. You can see the key tackles one is still completely broken. Hopefully that will change for next season. We'll have to see. Red cards. A couple of players got 2 red cards this season. As for yellows... Wait, where's the yellows? Yeah, so Charlie Good was certainly up there and was 1 game away from getting another one there, probably. Buendia was fantastic. We'll have nobody on this list at all. Oh no, Temenushkov, of course. My man. Average distance cover per 90 minutes. Nobody's making any runs anymore. I feel like we used to have players on this list, but we'll see. Headers 1. Willy Kambuala, I've looked at this guy a few times, actually. Was he on loan? Yeah, I looked at him before he went to Sheffield Wednesday, I think. Maybe I didn't. I can't even remember. Point is, we're having no players on any of these here. Possession 1. Charlie Good is winning a decent amount of possession, as is Ziga, amazingly. That's interesting. Wonder what it counts as winning possession. Does it just count on picking up a long ball that's been misplaced as possession? Strange. Possession lost. I mean, look at that. Regan Booty has lost possession more times than anybody else in the league. He performs well, but that is a very telling stat. Like, a comfortable amount more than anyone else. And if you go down much more than that, it gets very bad. So that's telling. Goals, Danny Loader got 31. Fair play. Obviously, we've got Temenushkov, still the 7th highest scorer in the league, to be fair, with 18 goals. Where would it have been without him? I actually bloody don't know. One of the higher expected goals amounts in the league as well, which is nice to see. So, but that's mostly first half of the year, unfortunately. He just didn't do much beyond that. He wasn't given the chances. It wasn't like he was missing shots and chances towards the end of the season. They just weren't there. He never got the chances. Shots on target. Low Everton as well, doing a decent job of keeping them on target, which is something. Conversion rate. Porteous as well. This is what I mean. He's the only player for me that's really stood out this season. Considering his stats for this year are pretty solid. Based on, bearing in mind we're a relegation threatened side. So he's continued to develop, and I'm pleased with that. Shots per 90 minutes. No one on there at all. We're just not shooting enough now. Free kick goals. Obviously, there's been very few. There was the one for Sunny Low Everton. Did we score one? I guess we must have done. Booty must have been out for that one. Penalties. Obviously, Graham Goldston actually scored 3 out of 3. It's so weird that, considering he isn't our designated penalty taker, Temenushkov is, yet he always just seemed to be on the pitch when we got the penalties later in games. And he, to be fair, 3 out of 3. Can't go wrong with that. Assist-wise, I guess, what was it? Nope, we had no one on there at all, amazingly. Assists per 90 minutes, maybe someone sneaking on? No. Key passes. Regan Booty's still up there with good key passes, but it comes at a cost, it seems, with Regan Booty, and that is a real cost so far. Key passes per 90 minutes, again, Booty on there, nobody else at all. But I think that might be why we need to have a designated playmaker in that midfield, maybe a ball-playing defender, and then a playmaker in the midfield. Just to sort of shape things up, go for the wide areas a little bit more. We'll try some stuff in friendlies, see what works for us. We just need to be better next year. And I think we're going to have to rely on a lot of the same squad we've had this year, because as much as we've got $1.5 million in the bank, we've basically got enough for one signing. That's about it, really. And they can't be amazing, because bear in mind, we've already got players on more money than we're allowed to switch over there. So, yeah, it's certainly interesting. Wow, the clear-cut chances thing really has very much changed this year. Like, we'd have players on previous versions of FM into the 30s and 40s on these types of situations, but it's sort of moved over to, like, key passes are way more common this year, and clear-cut chances seem to have gone away a lot. Passes attempted, Rican Puti's not even on there. Pass completion, obviously, will have... Oh, no, for Mayo. Okay, solid man at the back there. Crosses attempted, Regan Booty. Look at that. The sheer number of crosses Regan Booty's attempted. Now, that's probably because of the free kicks and him playing as a fullback, so part of that. Yeah, nobody on that one. No surprises there. Dribbles made. Yeah, no one on that one, of course, because we switched that off, so that would have probably brought us down there. I still think we made the right decision for that, but it's definitely worth noting. Obviously, with the tackles situation, defenders, it's really hard to know how much we can read into this, because it's not... Like, when it says tackles 1, does it count key tackles in that at all? Or, like, how is it calculating a lot of this stuff? That's insane. Notice how we had no players on this list, so it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up with our actual stats. Obviously, the key tackles thing is completely broken, and it's not like we could even look at this as far as players to sign, because it's just not something we can really do right now. Blocks, Pring... Yeah, we really struggle on blocks. I've noticed a lot of situations where other opposition teams will get the ball in our area. We've got a lot of defenders there, and they just never seem to get a block in, whereas at the other end, we're often getting our shots blocked. So it's quite telling that we've got nobody on this list at all. Like, just not even one player out of our back three, potentially, or even the fullbacks, to be fair. Clearances. Fameo has at least made a decent number of them, as has Good. So I guess that's something. Despite, I mean, Willie Campwala here, looks like he's ridiculously good, but of course, on loan from United, maybe someone we could bring in. Not really an area we're particularly focused in, I suppose. It's just a tough one to work out what to do at this point. I think it's mainly going to have to be tactical switches this summer. I don't believe that pure personnel is going to make a difference. Conceded. I mean, yeah, that should tell you something. Although that does change because of the different goalkeepers. And clean sheets. I mean, Ziga's only got 9 clean sheets this season in 45 matches. Saves held. One of the worst on that one as well. Saves parried. Slightly higher. He doesn't like to hold the ball, apparently, it would seem. Penalties saved. Obviously none, because we've only conceded 1. And save ratio. Wait. I mean, he's not even on here. That is interesting to me. But it could be that we're actually giving up a lot of high-quality chances. So, I don't know. I want to sign a new goalkeeper this summer. I do. But I'm still not sure if that's the answer to our problems. And I think maybe it could be the stuff in front of him that's causing him to only face really high-quality chances. and as a result of that, make him look worse than perhaps he is. Although some of those horrendous errors cannot be ignored at the same time. So let's just take a quick look at the squad as well while we're at it. So as far as centre-backs go, it's good for Mayo and Critchlow Noble, with some of the others getting in there as well. For Mayo and Lawrence, in fact, have mistakes into goals, but none of the others too, which is good. Charlie Good's made a lot of interceptions as well. You can see that their partners, although this is where Noble really has struggled. One of the things I found that our libero would do before was he would intercept a good amount. That's gone. And then the key passes that we perhaps expect to see out of him are, I mean, they're barely there. There's barely anything from him, really. His pass completion, which we will obviously be able to see in a minute. I don't know where the pass completion number is. I don't know if we've actually got the pass completion number on here, but it's not spectacular. Although, to be fair, he still has a higher PPG than both Good and Akinfenmewo, so there is definitely something to be said for that. And we do seem to concede more when he's not in the team. So it's a very interesting situation on that one, really. Headers 1 per 90 minutes. Doyle, decent in the air, to be fair. Chances created, you're not expecting much from those guys as far as chances go. But Mayo has created a few chances this season. And his key passes hasn't been that much worse than Critchlow Noble, which is one of the few things he's in the team for. XG-wise, Mayo underperformed ever so slightly. Critchlow Noble, a bit more. Good actually overperformed a little bit too. It's so hard to know what to make of these guys. I think we've actually got 3 very strong defenders there. It's just about getting the right patterns with them. And I don't think it's an area that we actually need to look too much into as far as new players, because to find players that are statistically, attributes-wise better than those 3 would cost a large amount of money, to be honest. And we've got Ewan and Doyle and Brooking and people behind them as well in the squad. I think that the defensive issues are more of a tactical thing than they are a personnel issue. Now, were I to find some things that definitely worked for us and then we still started having problems, then obviously that's something to look into. But I feel like it would cost us more money than we have in order to actually find better options in these positions currently. So it's a tough one. There's players coming through, there's players in the starting 11 that are actually of very good quality, but they need to be used properly now, and that the uses for them has now changed. What we could get away with doing with them before, we can no longer do, quite simply. So yeah, let's take a little look at some of the other positions. It's going to be so hard to judge fullbacks because they were so broken for so much of the year. But on the left-hand side, really, I mean, this will give you an idea. There's so little data to be able to gain much from this. Booty's played there for the most of the year and did get a lot of interceptions, but that would have definitely been falling lately because I've noticed so much that the fullbacks no longer get those intercepted passes, which does make you wonder, though, if us playing the ball into the wide areas more would allow us to benefit from that same thing. So we'll have to see. And that's one of the things I think maybe will give us more joy if we do try to focus more down the wide areas, even though we've only got the one guy on the left. This is where I mean that we may have to start to revert that too, but I don't think we're in that position yet. Cross completed, though. 20%, still pretty good from a man, Regan Booty. Lawrence is pretty good, too, but we don't know how much that's actually... That could be from 4 crosses that he completed 1 of. Chances created from Regan Booty. I mean, look at that. Key passes per 90 minutes is still nearly 5, which is ludicrously high. 10 assists. Assists created is pretty solid as well. Not as good as it has been in the past. He's underperformed his own goal-scoring issues, but that might be because he's taken so many free kicks this season that slowly but surely they've just added up to him, in theory, supposedly scoring more. I think left-back's definitely an area perhaps where we could look into that would free Regan Booty up to maybe move somewhere else. Now that fullbacks are allegedly fixed, we don't need to play him in that role, perhaps. Maybe look for an actual proper wing-back for that left-hand side. Like a Brandon Fleming-esque type of player, perhaps. Maybe that's where some of that money could go. I don't know. As for the right-hand side, it's basically been Bree and Richardson that have played in that role, but it's so hard to know what to make of this, given how bad fullbacks have been from the majority of this season. I mean, look at the average ratings on these players, because they will have just not been getting credit for things that they've been potentially doing in games, or they've not been doing them at all. I don't know which one of those it actually is. It's so hard to say. Barley Mumber and Richardson will go back. Bree's our full-time player, so perhaps, like, I've seen little bits out of him, particularly in the Sheffield United game. He set up 1 goal and scored a goal and definitely looked better. And bear in mind, he only scored 2 goals this year and 1 assist, and like a third of his goal contributions were in 1 game. So I don't know if he's a busted flush just yet, but I don't know. And maybe with losing someone like Barley Mumber, we can reinvest some of the money that we're paying him into a different part of the squad to free up a little bit more player, either for like a first team player that we could sign using some of that transfer funds, or just another loan signing, depending on the way things go. See what Chelsea have got for us. Not that they'll come anyway. As for the central midfield, this is so difficult to sort of even pin things down. Really, we're looking at Lawrence, John, Smith, and Mumber to a certain extent, but I kind of just want to see how Lawrence has got on in here. But yeah, I mean, you can filter some of this out a little bit more, but I wish you could just like select players and just hit like exclude. That'd be a nice little feature for this. like an option on hide players that was just like, it just said selected. So you could select them, hit that, and it would just hide those players. That, for me, would be a cool little feature. But, all right, whatever. Moving on. This is not about features, Matt. I think we could benefit, if we're going to move over to having less of a libero, to having a designated playmaker in this team. We did think about it in the past as well. Maybe having a playmaker in a Metsala, that way maybe a deep line playmaker on the right-hand side, that way he wouldn't perhaps interfere as much with the inverted wingback going into that space. Because that wasn't an issue on the early parts of the save, because I don't think the match engine really cared, but now it does seem like that's definitely a problem. So that might be something we'd look into, is actually having the playmaker on the right-hand side and having the Metsala continue where he is currently. It's all sort of up in the air right now. I'd like to get Niall John back for another season, and honestly, I kind of like Sonny Low Everton, but I'm just concerned about, with this new style of play that we may have to adapt to, whether that will allow us to get much out of a shadow striker anymore, because he seemed to benefit perfectly when we were going through the middle, when we turned on the passing more, and that seemed to get his best form of the season. Like, most of those goals that he scored this year, I think it was 6 of those 8, came in that little period of matches. So it's just hard to say. I definitely think more investment perhaps needed there, but, you know, with Lawrence and a good partner next to him could make a huge difference. What we're lacking really is any sort of players coming through in those positions per se. Tobin's potentially an option, but he's not exactly the youngest either. Though, that being said, he does appear to have a decent amount of talent, so maybe he's a player that could feature more next year, quite frankly, particularly if we were to get some injuries in those roles. I don't know. It's a really difficult one to figure out at the moment, because you're not just looking at personnel changes, you're looking at tactical changes too, and you don't know how the personnel changes you might potentially make would fit in with those tactical changes that you want to make. It's a position that we've not really found ourselves in, I don't believe at all, in in like a rebuilding save, really. We've had issues personnel-wise, and they've been fixed midway through we've had issues tactics-wise, and they've generally been fixed midway through a season. It's not normally something I have to do over the summer. So usually it's either recruitment or tactical switches. We're having to try to do both, and it's a bit of a juggling act, so we may not be able to come to as many conclusions as perhaps we would like to normally with this. So let's check out the right wingers and see what's going on with that. I think it's very clear what's going to happen with this. It's that, quite simply, Guy Porteous has rocked the boat as far as this position has gone this season. Minutes-wise, Porteous has obviously outperformed Lostak, Innis, and Rashawn Mathurin, who have also played in that role. The one thing I would say is that, as far as talent goes on this right, we are stacked out of our goddamn gourds. They're all young. They're all excellently talented with high potential. I don't think we need to be signing anyone in that position. All we've got to do is try to unleash them as best we can. Lostak's definitely been better at intercepting stuff. That's for sure. Although Mathurin as well, over a we can't really look at this number. It's too low. These three, though, we can definitely compare. Lostak's definitely done better defensively, without a shadow of a doubt. And does he have comes deep to get ball? He does. That might be the reason for that. Lostak's probably provided us more cover. I'm guessing we concede. No, we actually concede more. Interesting. Innis, though, that's very interesting. We don't concede much when Innis is in the team, do we? Jesus. And he's slightly worse in the air, despite being probably the tallest of the bunch, I think. That's very interesting. Lostak's like, what, 5'8", 5'9", and Porteous isn't the tallest, is he? 5'9" as well. And yet Innis has won the least headers out of that period. Surprising there. Few key ones in there, I suppose, though. So that's definitely interesting. But Lostak, more interceptions, more tackles, and he's got a better tackles-1 ratio as well. Definitely the more defensive of the two, or the three players. Cross-completion, though, it's all about Porteous. 17 and 10 and 8 is a massive step down. Key passes, Porteous is definitely more of a creative player. Lostak feels like more of a goal scorer. I don't know if we'll see that in his actual goals per game. Nah, it's around about the same, actually. He's been okay. He's massively overperformed his XG, though. But then, so has Guy Porteous. It seems that position just seems to do that for us. So, potentially an area that we could potentially look into in that period. Assist-wise, Porteous has definitely been more creative in there, which does show. He has more, he dribbles less, though, interestingly. Shots on target, Porteous shoots a bit more on target, and he has a higher shots on target percentage. So, Porteous is definitely the first choice for the role, but I think like Lostak, Innis, and Rashawn Mathurin can all do jobs in that position. I don't see us losing any of them anytime soon, so that's certainly not a position that I'm potentially worried about. And neither is the strike force, to be honest. I think Temenushkov is a very good striker. We can't deny his goal-scoring threat. It's undeniable how good he's been as a striker for us this season. Even though perhaps it's not been the years that he scored 40 goals last season. He was never going to do that again this year in the Championship at his first season at this level. But to score 20 goals in all competitions, that's still a goal every other game nearly. That's not bad, really, in the grand scheme of things. Just comparing him perhaps to Goldston. Goldston's better at interceptions. He does seem to get stuck into tackles a bit more, but we do concede more with him in the team. He's better in the air than Temenushkov, which isn't hugely surprising given that Goldston's 6'1" and Temenushkov's like 5'8". 5'5". I mean, that's not a surprise at all. Goldston definitely offers something different, but Temenushkov, again, brings more people into the play, dribbles a little bit more. We do score more with Goldston in the team, though, but he hasn't created much for other people, but the PPG is slightly lower there. Goldston's outperformed his XG slightly, which is fine. He actually scores more goals per 90 minutes than Temenushkov, though. That's kind of interesting. Though maybe some of those substitute appearances have kind of messed with that. Hits the target a decent amount, and this is what I mean. I feel like goal scoring wise, Temenushkov's a great striker, and I don't believe that Graham Goldston's numbers, if you look at the raw data for things like, goals per 90 minutes, assists per 90 minutes, and XG per 90 minutes and stuff like that, they're not that bad. He just hasn't played enough. So I feel like next year, again, like striker and they're not the issues. The issue we're having is the creating of the chances, which is the thing dried up the most. Temenushkov hasn't been scoring lately because he hasn't been getting chances to score. Quite simply. He still makes a lot of the same runs. The balls are just not being found anymore. And I do wonder if that's because of some under-the-hood changes as to what players do in certain positions. And so we need to find out... All we need to really do is find out which instructions and positions we need in our team in order to basically replicate the same exact play we were creating earlier this season. And that's what I intend to do over the summer. And I believe that perhaps a ball-playing defender instead of a libero, actually introducing a playmaker and focusing down the wings could be all we need to do. But we'll have to test it out in some friendlies and just see how we go in the early stages of the next season, because I think recruitment's going to be very, very difficult this summer. But nevertheless, challenges are fun at the end of the day, so we're going to do our best. So that kind of concludes this part of the season. I've had a lot of stuff to do today. I'm actually going to go record or try to make the transfer video after this as well for the 4th video of the day, because hey, FM's still fun at the end of the day. Losing isn't fun, but turning those losses into wins with tactics and recruitment is very fun. And I don't believe that the save would be as enjoyable, because think of it from 2 seasons from now, potentially, when we've sorted ourselves out and we're on the verge of the Premier League, perhaps. You never know. We'll look back on this and go, if we hadn't have had these struggles, this save wouldn't have been as enjoyable, hopefully, as it is at that point. So, the word of the day is going to be care, because Em's left her ibuprofen pain gel on my desk, and it has the word care written on it in giant letters. So if you got this far, let me know how much you care. Hopefully that's a lot. If you got this far, you probably do. So, yeah. If you've enjoyed this, drop a like. That'd be superb. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. That'd be excellent as well. I stream on Twitch. You know the drill. Go follow there as well. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for some transfer goodness. Hopefully next season will be a more entertaining season as far as us having some positive results. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.